Hey there, Danny with Right Foot Down. I messed up this ad read so many times because I really want to tell you about Track Monkey Apparel. They make great quality enthusiast shirts along with hats, stickers, watches, patches, you name it. A couple of my personal favorites are their Life is Better at the Track tee and their One Track Mind tee. You should really check them out and see for yourself. Their products are great for you or the gearhead in your life. Visit trackmonkeyapparel.com.
You're listening to the Untitled Car Show in partnership with RightFootDown.com. Visit Right Foot Down for your daily automotive fix. If you enjoyed today's program, please tell a friend. It's the best way to support this show. If you want to visit the archives, go to YouTube and search for Untitled Car Show. That'll bring you to the archived episodes. If you want to follow this show, just search for Untitled Car Show on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can always send an email to the show at untitledcarshow@rightfootdown.com. We're so glad you decided to spend the next hour or so with us. Without further ado, let's get into today's program. Hello and welcome to the Untitled Car Show. I am your host, Ike, and we have the West Coast correspondent, Ryan, here with us this evening. Hi, Ryan.
Whoa!
So we were talking about random weird shit in California before the show, and we got to a thing. So we got onto the topic of ARs, because that's how it happens. So I know we probably don't have a whole bunch of gun nuts here in the show, but
we might. We might. It's a hobby that your wife is probably fond of, and I think it relates in terms of, like, I like to think of sports that you can't conquer. So, like golf, for example. Nobody that we know is ever going to be a professional golfer or capable of having a perfect golfing outing. Yeah. And I think that's the same for racing / time trialing. Like, you can shoot 30 baskets in a row or 60 baskets in a row. You can, like, set a goal for that. You can't set a goal for golfing, because you'll never get a hole-in-one on every single hole you go to. It's, like, impossible. You can't do it. I think shooting and driving are the same way. So I think there's going to be a lot of overlap on them.
Mm-hmm. And there's a appreciation of the mechanical. Like, I'm not a huge gun nut, but I really do like, the history and all that's associated with those weapons. But part of what California's doing right now is they got this gun law, which is it?
There's only one.
Well, I mean, in particular, so they tried to crack down on the, quote, assault rifle type weapons by making them have a fixed magazine.
Now, you can either there's two solutions to this, and if you owned an AR prior to, I think it was sometime in November or December of last year, as long as you registered your weapon with the authorities, like that you owned it, you could keep it the way it was, the way it's always been. And the way it's always been in California is you can't have a detachable mag. You have to have a tool-operated mechanism or two-stage way to release the magazine. And the way we got around it in California for a really long time is, do you know where the mag release is on an AR, Ike?
Yeah, it's well, depends, but it's like ambidextrous. It's up near the clip. So, like...
Yeah, it's up by the clip, yeah. If you're shooting a right-handed one, it's like up by the clip, there's a little knob.
Yeah.
Now, think about, like, the reset button on a remote.
Yeah.
How you have to get, like, a safety pin in there to, like, push the reset button.
Oh, okay.
It's designed similar to that. It's called a bullet button, and you're supposed to be able to trigger the clip with an Allen key.
All right. So that
or
was...
some other tool.
Yeah, just make it a little bit of a pain in the butt to put a new clip in. Yeah.
And what people ended up doing is they would get metal, like, magnetic pieces to set on the outside of the bullet button, which it was still technically a removable tool. It happened to have a magnet on it, and it pretty much got around that almost immediately. And all of that said, if you have an AR, and you're familiar with the AR, they're all pretty modular, and it's totally legal for me to order a push-button release in the state of California. I can order one, I just can't mount it to the gun. Wink. So
Yeah.
If you really wanted to, last year, you could have a button release mag. It wouldn't be illegal if you were at the shooting range and the sheriff saw you get the gun taken. But you could do that. Now, even the bullet button, which is what it was called because you could also trigger it with the end of a 5.62 round, the bullet button wasn't legal, and now you either have to pull the charging handle or breech or whatever the fuck they call it. The bolt, whatever. You have to pull that back and then press the button and break the barrel off from the lower receiver, and then it releases the mag.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either do it that way, which is a pain in the ass, or you have to buy a special hand grip that's pretty much one big fat piece of plastic that makes it, quote, not a pistol grip, so that you grip it more similar to a regular rifle as opposed to an AR, which has a pistol grip. So as long as it doesn't have the grip, or you have the convoluted as hell mag release, it's legal now. But if you owned a regular one before that, the bullet button is still legal.
There was actually, I saw another system, which I don't know, how familiar are you with the, like, World War I and, like, early, like, gun development? I guess World War II with
Vaguely.
So, like, you remember, like, I think what most people would be familiar with is the, M1 carbine, or not the carbine, the M1 Garand. You take the bullets and they come in what's called a stripper clip, and you push them down through. I forget the name of the company. I was just watching it, and, like, it was the day after the California ban went into effect, and I was watching a YouTube series called Forgotten Weapons, and a lot of times they give you all the weird random stuff. So it's like, in California, this went into effect yesterday. Today we got a way to get around it, and it's basically it makes stripper clips for M4s, ARs, and all that stuff. So then you just put it into the ejection port and then strip down into it, and then you have a full mag, and it probably takes less time to do that than it actually takes to reload an actual magazine. So I was like,
all right.
Yeah, it's like that's about what I expect from these people. You know, like as soon as there's a problem, they find a workaround to it. And that
right.
And someone made a comment of like last week's episode with Dave was very much like the Untitled Coffee Show, and somehow we're getting to the Untitled Gun Show today. But I'm curious. So California, super strict on guns, super strict on cars, and hopefully this doesn't proceed the way where it spreads out throughout the rest of the country on either of those regards. But it's one of those things of, when you're trying to outlaw something from a group of people who are, by the very nature of their hobby, mechanically minded, and you have no idea how to stop them from doing what they're doing, you kind of are like at the jump, like playing behind. Like no matter what you do and tell a gun nut, hey, listen, you can't do X, Y, or Z, they're going to find a way to get around it. That's just how they are.
Right.
And I do think that's very much the same way for the true automotive enthusiast. Like you tell, you or I, like, hey, you can't, like all the cars have to have a catalytic converter on them, and that's going to suck 50% of your horsepower out. Well, you and I might find a way to get around that by, making that catalytic converter only suck 25% of the horsepower out, only 10% out. Or yeah, and it's like, I'm curious, like, do you think, like, you're in the vanguard of, I'm not going to call them stupid laws, but I can't think of another way to call it. I mean, like, you can't bring your dog to a beach in California, and that just blows my mind.
That's not true.
L.A.?
It might be an LA thing. It might be certain beaches. You can bring your dog. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. People, it's not one of those like, oh, well, it's illegal, but people do it. Nobody ever gets like. It's not illegal. Mm-hmm. There's rules about. There's certain beaches where, like, they'll have a sign up and it says, this is a beach where your dog can roam free. Don't worry about it. As long as you have eyesight control of the dog, which means as long as you can see the dog and you can shout and it will do what you tell it to. Then you can let the dog off the leash if you want. You have to pick up after it, obviously, and all that stuff. But no, you can bring dogs to beaches, as far as I'm aware. There's signs about how to do it.
Must be an LA thing.
It's an LA thing. Yeah.
So, by the way, like there's LA's one of the more restrictive states. Let's put it that way. So, And because of that, I could see them being one of the first states to, and they do it partially because they're the most populous state, and they can make real changes to, the way the rest of the country owns and operates cars, simply because you're going to make a car compliant for the U.S., not just for California. So, I'm curious, these gun nuts who go out and they find ways around the laws when it comes to stripper clips and like magazines and all that stuff. When and if it comes down, because I can see this being instituted in California first, of no more people allowed to drive. Do you think that there's going to be a group of fanatics who sit around and find a way to get manual control of their car?
So I don't think that that's going to be a near-term possibility. Like, we're looking at maybe 100 years out, but it's definitely not going to happen in our lifetime. And the reason I have faith in that, and if you're a Northern California listener, you're going to hate me right now. The governor of California is not the awful person they make people, or people make him out to be. There was a law that the assembly proposed that was you had to have a background check every time you purchased ammunition.
Yeah, that would happen.
So, and when that hit the governor's desk, and the governor in a Democratic state, law proposed, Democratic assembly mostly, and a Democratic governor, and he said, you know what, that's ridiculous. That puts an unnecessary burden on law-abiding citizens. That's insane. I'm going to veto that. There's no way that's going to pass. I'm not doing it. And there's 2 or 3 other gun laws that they hit his desk, and, he approved some of the more silly ones that I'm not a fan of. But at the same time, the ones that were really outrageous, he said, that's not helping anybody. That's not going to fix anything. That's people who know what they're doing. That's punishing them, and that's not what we're about. We're about trying to make places safe. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be good PR for the person who decides to ban cars. And frankly, all of those assemblymen, et cetera, have too nice of cars that currently aren't autonomous to make that kind of thing important. And you also have the lobbying aspect. There's no way the fuel lobby or the car lobby is ever going to let that thing. So, no. And if you don't think SEMA has a grasp on the state of California when they require that you have to have a CARB-approved sticker put in a modification on your car, and you have to modify, and if you're not from California, this won't be apparent, you can't add a different intake to your Mustang. Now, you can send your Mustang to the smog shop, and they put the little thing in the tailpipe, and it blows just fine. But if they open the hood of your vehicle and they see a non-stock airbox, they immediately fail your smog inspection. Doesn't matter what score it got. If your aftermarket airbox has a CARB sticker, which means it's been inspected, quote-unquote, by the state and approved for legal highway use, which also, by the way, happens to be like a $45,000 process per model. So if I want to make one for the 2015 Mustang V8, $45,000. If I want to make one for the 2016 Mustang V8, $45,000. V6, $45,000. V6 another year, $45,000. It's weird that the Special Equipment Manufacturers Association, they support some of the CARB laws, and it means that all the people who pay into SEMA are the only ones that can afford to create CARB-legal parts. Weird. Weird how that works.
Yeah. It's,
no, I don't think that's a possibility.
Well, I'd say if it were a possibility, I do think it would start in California. And I do think...
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Oregon... Maybe I could see even Colorado. I could see it being like, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We'll make driving illegal out here. But I think no matter where it happens, wherever it's coming from, I do think it's going to be one of those things where you'll see some crazy dude find a workaround to it. Like, you can't buy a new car that allows you to drive itself, and some guy finds a way to rig up a Logitech joystick to it. Or some random other BS, just to have physical control of it. Because I think that's always going to be, one of the things I love about people is that there's there's always that like one, you know, as ridiculous as they are, I kind of enjoy the fact that there's flat Earth people out here, because no matter how much evidence to the contrary there is, someone's going to believe, well, the Earth's flat. Like, you know, that's just how it is. I can see out, and it's just fucking flat. There's always that guy. Like, there, you know, the crazy crackpot people planning for doomsday. Like, well, you know, I don't want when all the cars take over for them to drive me into a lake and lock me inside the car. You know, there's going to be a couple of those guys, but then I do think there's going to be just pure enthusiasts who enjoy the act of driving, who just want to control and control and work on their own vehicle. Yeah, a bit of a brain freeze there, so back to it. So, I don't know, I think we're always going to have people who want want control of their car for one reason or another. Maybe paranoid, maybe not. I mean, I don't ever see a day where, you know, much to maybe Alyssa Walker's you know, dismay, where we'll ever get it to where no one is going to be driving their own vehicle on the road. So.
Can I just say, and I was only a listener when I heard the Alyssa Walker interview. I wasn't actually on the show yet. I really want to address some things she said. Something along the lines of, I believe her comment was, oh, well, if cars banned, you can just take them to tracks like people do with horses.
Yeah. Which,
do you remember her making that comment?
I do, and that's a lot of people's argument.
Riding a horse on the road is perfectly legal. You can totally do that. That is 100% legal. You can't have it on the freeway. You can do it on the road. And the other half of that is, sure, you can go do that if you're rich and bougie, like half the people are who do the horse thing. But, you know, screw everybody else, right? That kind of just, like, self-righteous, oh, well, they can just go to, like, you don't know the law, for one. And two, great, now only rich people can access that. Thanks. Appreciate it. That pissed me off about that interview.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she seemed very level-headed, but there was a lot of things about what she said that I was not a fan of, because she didn't sound like she had any idea what the hell she was talking about.
It is. No, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm not saying I agree with you. I do think there's the because, you know, you try and get people on and you try and be happy and, you know, kind of nice to them, especially when they disagree with you, which is why I'll never be on mainstream media, because I'm too eager to go, well, I understand your point. Well, I may not agree with it. We'll continue this interview. It's one of those things where, because that's how life works. But I do agree that I don't think you're going to see, because first of all, golf takes up way too much room, so we're never going to get tracks all over the place. As long as there's old rich dudes who want to golf, we're never going to have tracks everywhere. Second of all, I mean, it's just the case. I do agree. I don't like the idea of, like, sectioning off that level of enjoyment to just people who have money. Because, yeah, cars, you can argue cars are an expensive person's hobby, but I was into cars when I didn't have a lot of money. You were into cars when you didn't have a lot of money. Most people get into this hobby by having to make do with whatever they had, or making something crappy into something good, like from age 16 to 50, basically, before you can just spend willy-nilly on your car because your 401k or whatever the hell fancy rich people have. Is it 401ks? Right. Yeah. They start cashing them out or whatever. Like, my investment's in Apple stock. So I don't like the idea that you try and cut people off from the hobby. And it is true, and there are people who still take horses to and from places. I mean, spend any time up in Pennsylvania, you'll see horse-drawn carriages, all sorts of stuff, and sometimes it's Amish and sometimes it's not. It's just, that's how life is up there, and because you're not going too far, and a horse works just as good, and it's cheaper to feed a horse than $5 worth of gas. So
I don't know.
As long as you don't love the horse. Yeah, as long as you don't love the horse, it's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. All right, I'll buy that.
Yeah, and there is the argument, too, of, I think Jay Leno made it, that the automobile freed up the horse from its life of servitude, but so like you didn't have a workhorse. Now every horse out there on the road was, could be loved and cared for because the people who had horses wanted to have horses. But on the flip side of that, you don't see horses anymore, and it has become kind of an obscure hobby for people to have. And the difference, too, is when you had a workhorse, you would literally work it to death, whereas I really like honest cars, like a Yugo, for example. A Yugo would never be loved and cared for or even made if this hobby was just or if this thing was just ever a hobby. A Yugo would never be made. Like, you won't ever see that sort of, like, level of, like, well, this is a car, and this is what a car needs to be at the bare minimum to be a vehicle. And you lose something. You lose the honesty and the integrity of this hobby if you start stripping away those vehicles from it. And I think we would lose something if we weren't allowed to drive from place to place. So,
yeah, I think that's fair. To your Yugo point, I am a little the Yugos are cool car hipster thing is getting tired.
I was just trying
I think it's like anything that's cool. It's like crappy. And, like, we've entered the, like, oh, Yugos are cool phase. I think it's starting to go away. At least, God, I hope it is. Because, these people that, like, 15 years ago, if you reviewed a Yugo, all the car reviewers would be like, this is an ugly pile of crap. It's slow, and it handles well. And it handles like crap, and everything's awful. But now, when anybody reviews Yugo, it's like, oh, my God, it's the greatest thing ever. This is great. Why don't we make cars like there's a reason we didn't make cars like this, jackass. Yeah. No one bought them because they were shit. Mm-hmm. I'm just, again, I figure you're a really nice person. I'm gonna have bold opinions. I'm gonna be the Ian, if you will.
Yes.
And I'm gonna put stuff out there that this is dumb. Stop thinking Yugos are cool. They're not cool. The Ford Festiva, not cool. Geo Metro, not cool. Don't even try to pretend no, it's not. Really not. Stop. 30 years from now, my child's going to be like, oh, I'm really trying to find a Fiat 500L.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to be trying to find a Fiat 500L. No. One, they'll have all been destroyed by then, but no.
Well, I do think we've entered this weird point in automobile hobbyists where everyone who's and again, we had the weird Skype conversation where we're trying to decide what the hell young people do and what old people do. And, everyone probably over the age of, I'm going to go with just 45, is super into high-end luxury cars, not Rolls Royces, but like BMWs and Porsches and all that stuff. And they want the best and, the fastest and all that stuff. And it seems like everyone under 35 is really into, if you're a car enthusiast, you're like, I like Miatas, and I like old Yugos, and I like Volvos, and, there's this love of, kind of the weird and kitschy. I mean, the Pontiac Aztec is starting to come around. And even I find myself being like, I know that's a terrible car, but I can't help but kind of like it. And I wonder if part of the issue is, and now this is weird because you're younger than I am by almost a decade, and you don't like these cars. So maybe we're...
I am counter car culture, which I think is in and of itself a hipstery thing to say, and that kind of personally sits not well with me. But go take a look at any opposite lock page where we're la 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 Miata, la 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 Aztec, la 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 Ether. Dude, there's a gazillion other cars out there. You don't just have to keep. I think the under 25 car culture is so intermeshed with each other. These people read Jalopnik, or are commenters on the drive, or are on Facebook groups that are car themed. And they all just circle jerk and read each other's material, and there's no new outside anything. And so we ended up with this, oh, you have a Mustang? Don't hit a bunch of people. That was funny for a week and a half.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You have a Subaru WRX? I bet you vape. not. It's so these like car culture memes stick around way too long.
Oh no,
it doles down the entire experience. It makes me very grumpy and very angry.
No, I agree with you on that. We need to, like, part of what makes the car culture fun is a bit of that stereotyping, because when you show up to the meet, you can all tease on each other. But we need new material every meet. And when there's a Cars and Coffee every weekend, we need to start, like, picking up our meme game here, guys. We need to start.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe we got to enlist some old timers and start getting some old time, like, info going on here. Like, old timer, what do you think of this Aztec? Like, oh, that Aztec's a piece of crap. It's got a cooler. Who gives a shit? It's got a cooler. What are you, gay? Like, that sort of thing. That's what we need. We need that in our, like, you know, our day-to-day lives. A little bit, you know, we need a little bit of, I think you're right, because we've gone a little too long where we're, I don't want to say we're too accepting of car cultures and, like, all the weird crappy stuff, but we need some old-time anger built back into it, like, just for no good reason angry at crappy cars. Like, that thing's a piece of shit and you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, we need some of that just to reinvigorate back into the car culture, because we've gone, I'm not going to say we've gone soft, but we've gone a bit soft. Like, we're
I think the other problem is we don't speak to the entirety of car culture. And by that I mean we're talking to and like pretty much I just insulted our entire listener base.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
But we're only talking to that, I don't know, 20% of car culture people who are like grew up watching Top Gear and like track cars and like autocross and think Miatas are cool, who read Jalopnik. I would say that's only 20% of the enthusiast market, and there's a whole 80% of like off-road and truck people, muscle car people, there's hot rodder people, and there's not enough overlapping, I guess. Is that it's very segmented, and that's why there's not new stuff coming around as frequently as, you know, there might be.
That's a good point. We need to. So several things to unpack there. So first of all, I do think the Top Gear analogy made me think. Okay, so to your car meme aspect, like they had a new car every week, and they wouldn't repeat the same jokes over and over again, because if they did, no one would be watching. But
right.
Also, we do need to start, like, you know, the Cars and Coffee is great because it kind of forces different car cultures to kind of meet and mesh. But I do think there's this, like, disconnect where, like, when I show up, the Lamborghini guys aren't going to talk to me because I showed up in a Ford Fiesta ST. And, you know, the Mustang guys, they don't like the hot hatch people. And, like, they don't talk to the Camaro people. Like, we need to, you know what we need? We need, like, some sort of, like, you know when they desegregated schools? Like, where they, like, force people to, like, go to different schools and all that stuff. We need some of that in the automotive world. We need to be, like, listen, Lamborghini guy, you got to hang out with the Ford Festiva guy. Like, that's just what's going to happen here. And we'll throw in a Camaro guy and a Mustang guy, and you all four of you got to get along and play nice with each other. And then maybe after, like, a week, we'll just rotate it all around again. Like, just...
I think part of the reason it doesn't do that more than it would naturally is by nature cars are very specific. So I was thinking while you were talking about that, I was listening, but I'm also, you know, trying to form a thought, something useful to say.
Yeah.
We should just start having Miata people go to the drag strip and hang out with all the old guys in their chopped 55 Bel Air, and then invite those people to come autocross. And like I thought about that for about half a second. That's not going to be useful for anyone. Because the Miata guys are going to be miserable at the drag strip. They're like, why am I have nothing to prove. That's not what I built the car for. The car goes around cones really fucking fast. And the guy with the 55 Bel Air is like, I'm running pizza cutters up front, guys. I'm not going to get turned in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get this turned around a hairpin and then slalom it. The tires are going to come off. I have too much power. I'm just going to be lugging it in first, having to dip the clutch back in all the time. It's just going to be miserable for them. And then the same thing with, like, your typical 370Z track day bro isn't going to do well at either of those either. Your drifter guy isn't going to go to the drag strip. That's not going to be his fun. Your rally car guy isn't going to go to the track. That's not going to be any fun. They're too specialized. Whereas if I get I think most hobbies are specialized, but the barrier of entry to change your mind in cars is a lot higher than it is in bikes. And again, we'll come back to friend of the show, Dave. He's a bike guy, and he owns several bicycles. You know why? Because you can buy a bicycle for like $600. So, like, I have a road bike and a commuter bike. I can use my commuter bike for cyclocross if I want, which means I can do a little bit of dirt. And I have a road bike. I can go road biking. Now, am I better at road biking than I am cyclocross? Absolutely. And thus, I have a more expensive road bike than I have a cyclocross bike. But if I wanted to get into mountain biking, it would be like a $400 investment. I could go do that, too. If you buy a Miata and you decide, I think I want to start hanging out with and I want to give a shot at this drag racing thing, you're either going to have to drop $5,000 on your motor to make it even remotely worthwhile to take the drag trip, or you have to buy a completely separate car and start from ground zero. And so you're looking at an entry level to the other era or the other section of it like $5,000 or $10,000. Mm-hmm. And you can't just keep, it'd be nice to have the money to be able to do all that, but you can't keep doing it. I have what I think is the cheapest roll-caged track car in the country. I own it. It doesn't even run. And, like, if I decided I wanted to go drag racing, it'd be fucking useless. Completely useless.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to find a $500 drag car somewhere? No, I'm not. It's not going to happen. So, I mean, I really don't. I think we should have more crossover, but because the reason there's no crossover is the barrier to entry into the other section of the sport, if you will, is too high.
Yeah,
you want to go cross-country skiing instead of downhill skiing? Great. Rent a set of skis for like $200 and go cross-country. You want to do a different kind of biking? Boom, do it. You want to go sailing a little bit different? You want to sail on a lake instead of on the ocean? You go rent a sailboat. Not that expensive. You're not just going to rent a car to go to the track. And if you want to, it's a lot of money. So,
yeah. Well, that's a good point. I think what we should do, I just think it would make sense if we did like as an automobile enthusiast, we just do like once a year, we pick like a random event. So let's say 2018 is the year of drag racing. So in June, we're going to have, like tracks all across the country on like a particular weekend or whatever, where you can drive up and you can get into a car with someone else who's going to go ripping down the quarter mile, like, just so you can experience why they like this. Maybe not something where you're going to get into it and love it, because
right.
it is such, like you said, such a barrier to entry. And then the next year we could have like drifting, like we're going to all the drag or drift strips or whatever the hell you call them. You'd show up, get in drift strips. I'm going to call them drift strips from now on. You have drag strips and drift strips. So you'd show up at the drift strip and you hop in the car and you get taken around a corner, and like, it wouldn't be as fun with you not driving it, but at least it would be a lot easier to communicate to the other. Because right now, we are these little isolated pockets all over with our different hobbies that are all kind of under the same automotive enthusiast umbrella. And it would be, it would be nice. One of the things I kind of miss about the Challenger was every gas station I got harassed by people with stupid questions, but there was the occasional other guy who shows up with a muscle car or a Mustang or, just something in that vein. And you get this like 10 or 15 minute conversation with them about, what you got under the hood, what you got under the hood, blah, blah, blah. And I always felt like I walked away with some sort of new knowledge, because I wasn't a big muscle car guy when I bought the Challenger. I kind of became one after I had it. So, I just think we should all learn to speak the same, not maybe the same language, but we could all learn a little bit from each other. And I think it would also be awesome if once a year we just got an excuse to tell our wives and, husbands and whoever, like, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go meet up Skeeter at the tractor pull, and he's going to take me down in his truck with the sled behind it. I don't understand why I'm doing this. I just know I'm going to do it. So, like, because I don't get tractor pulling, and I want to understand. So,
yeah, I would like to also.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing. I think that's a good idea. Or even like an exchange service.
Ooh.
Like, I'll give you, a night at the drag strip in my Mustang if you'll let me autocross your 350Z next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm sure you'd have to work out insurance and liability and all that, and that would be why you couldn't do it. But, or just some kind of something, to get people involved in the other part of the sport to at least understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not get them to go do it all the time, but,
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about it briefly. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show. You bought the cheapest caged car in America? Possibly the world?
I think so.
Yeah.
I believe so. The cheapest car, and you have to put a caveat, because I'm sure somewhere somebody has a $500 shell with a cage in it, with nothing else attached, and probably. I found a 1987 Toyota MR2 Lemons car with flashing.
You broke up there for just a second.
Is brand new.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You broke up there for just a second. I think it was maybe something on my end. I touched something. What was on the? You said it was a 87 MR2 with
1987 Toyota with head shoots. So the guy thought it was the head gasket. He did a leak down test after we bought it, of course. It was $500. Wasn't the fuss guy's false about it. We think the valve tray needs to be replaced, but he has receipts showing that they had already redone the entire bottom end and it's been bored out. So that part should be fine. Just as soon as we get the head issue worked out, it's got a seat, it's got a harness, it's got a roll cage, it's got track wheels and tires, and it's got decent brake pads, and came with a bunch of nice brake fluids. So, for $500, I thought it was a pretty good haul, but my friend who's the mechanic is perpetually telling me that we spent too much money on this motherfucking car, and I'm an idiot, and all this crap. So,
I think mechanics are supposed to tell you that, though, until the job gets done, because that's how they get paid.
Right.
Like, that's just their habit.
Right. Oh, he's not being paid, is the thing. So
yeah.
That's why he gets to do it.
Well, force of habit. Like, oh, this thing's terrible, you're going to need a new bottom end, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, I'm not getting paid. That's right. You paid too much money for this. It should have gone to me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's, I think, honestly, probably the cheapest car of its kind available that was pre-caged and pre-seated and pre-harnessed. So, the barrier to entry to Lemons is pretty high. You're looking at $1,600 in entry fees at a minimum.
Yeah.
It's like $600 or so per, it's some ridiculous number per driver, and you have to have 4 drivers, plus $775 registration fee. So each race is $1,600, what it worked out to be for 4 people. And fuel, and tires, and now you have to have a Hans device. Those are easy $400 a piece. And racing suits $200, and socks are $50, and shoes are $100, and gloves are $100, and helmet, and by the time you add up the money, it's still really expensive. But I have spent almost nothing on the car part. So,
which is the least important part, really, in terms of racing.
And I understand though. Well, how much is your life worth? I don't anticipate getting in a wreck bad enough to need a Hans device. So that's a little bit sucky that's the rule now, and you can't just use the neck roll.
Yeah.
Foam thing, but I'm sure it is safer, but at the same time, that really makes it more difficult for people who are marginal like myself to do it. So this MR2 is going to be a autocross/track day car until such a time that I have all of this equipment that I need, and then I will probably enter Lemons race, or even get it prepared and then lease it out to people to do for Lemons race.
It's actually not a bad way to make money. So is it road legal then? Can you drive this thing on the streets?
No, it's not. All of the smog equipment is there, and there's no California state inspection, but the team who originally owned it blew the head somehow. I never got the answer at how, but like they had like a top 3 finish a couple times. They owned it for like 4 or 5 years. Sold it to this guy in the Bay Area, and then he kept it for like a month or two. Blew the head again after putting all this money into it because we think he put it back together wrong and just wanted to be rid of it. And so then he sold it to us for $500. But the title was never transferred from the original owners. It was simply non-op. So in order to actually make it street legal, it would involve a lot of paperwork fiasco, including paying a bunch of, because they non-opted, but in California to non-op it, there's like every 3 years you have to pay a fee to have it non-op. It's like $25 or whatever, but so there's going to be probably $200 worth of back fees and the headache of explaining that we didn't steal it and all. And so we have a bill of sale, and it's not going to be a street legal.
Yeah, I got that. I get that. Yeah, so I mean, you have the ability to truck it where it needs to go, and that's really all that matters. So,
right.
And it's nice knowing that you can take it out on the track, and even if it blows up, you can get back, even if it's an autocross track. So,
right.
There's a benefit there. I get that. I very
and the cool
excited.
Part,
yeah.
The cool part about that particular car is the 5SFE, is the very engine in my Camry, and it was the engine of the Camry for like 10 years. You can find at a junkyard for around $400 running.
That's pretty badass.
Horrendously expensive and pretty much easy to work on and find a replacement one, and it bolts straight up.
Yeah, you reminded me I got to go check something. So I was doing my research on the Nissan, how to get the Nissan transmission to mate up to the Audi motor. And I was looking like, well, I need a bell housing adapter, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Doing a bit of research, the Volvo bell housing I have for my automatic transmission should actually adapt the Nissan Trans to the Audi motor, of all things.
Wow.
Because that Audi motor was built at the same time they built motors to put into Volvos, like they put the diesels into the Volvos back in the early 80s or late 80s, early 90s. And the Tremec transmission is a pretty universal design. So I got to double check on that. So we should see, but it's got a very similar bolt pattern on both ends. So I got to double check it. But I'm very excited for what may possibly be gone from a giant headache of mine to like, oh, this I can actually use a factory part. So should be interesting.
That would be good.
Yeah, it would be nice.
We may have to work out some kind of midway sort of joint test / competition when both of our cars are finished.
Yes. Well, I think we need to get...
Logistically, that seems like it would cause a problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, we would need to get...
Where would be dead in the middle on that?
Where's the middle of America? Somewhere in Colorado, probably?
It's like Iowa.
Yeah. But I was only like, what?
But I think there's no tracks. Would it be like Road America, maybe? In Wisconsin?
Yeah, that's a little north from both of us, so that's not too bad. That might be fun. I don't know. I don't know if my car would be allowed out there, but an autocross. Ooh, solo nationals. We could do solo nationals or something like that. That'd be fun.
We could do solo nationals somewhere.
Yeah, and we can make Justin bring along his Ute. So
his Ute, just
you come bring the Ute.
Maybe Justin's Ute can tow your car. No.
That way it'll actually make it there. That's a good point. See,
do it, right?
Yeah.
Check it out. Mm-hmm. We'll do a review, and I will
You'll review
trucks that transport the cars to and from car shows, and I'll do like a ride of what it's like to do a car transporter back and forth, and then we'll get to do it for free.
Oh, see, there we go.
Who do we talk to about that? We should work on that. That seems like it's totally doable, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll ask Will. He'll know who to call.
Yeah. Who are you gonna call? Woo! Good. Yeah, he's always such a help all the time. Like, I need a car. It's like, we'll email them. Right?
I mean, using math, like let's say you take your car to Dominion or even VIR. VIR would be better.
Mm-hmm.
If you took your car to VIR and set a lap time, then I could take my car to like Sonoma, and we could figure out like I don't know, like I'm guessing Audi R8 race cars have gone around both VIR and Sonoma. Actually, I know they have.
Ah.
And so we can just work out what percentage slower we are than the car we're comparing to, and then give ourselves rough lap times at either track.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We would have a direct comparison. We could like extrapolate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just.
I think we'll have to do that.
Yeah, that would be fun. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Like, how sucky you are at a track, because I'm sure the same driver has gone around the same course, or both courses probably too, in the same car. So
same driver, same car, same
yeah.
team. Yeah, it'd have to be a track where that data is available.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Man,
I think we should do that. That would be the best way to do it.
You stumbled across something brilliant there, actually, sir.
And then you could extrapolate it even further, right?
Yeah.
How fast does an Audi R8 go around the Nürburgring, the Audi R8 race car?
Yeah. And then percentage
then we
we
give
are.
ourselves Nürburgring times for our race car.
Yes.
Without actually having to be out there.
Mm-hmm. Although my car might top out at some point on that big straight, so I'm not sure.
Oh, and you think the MR2 with all 100 horsepower won't?
Also, touche. Yeah, good point.
It's going to come down to how much torque do you think you have, because I bet I can brake later. Other than that, you would destroy me on any straight.
Yeah, but
you destroy me on any straight up to 80, and then I have more arrow. Dark shape, MR2.
Yeah.
Driving a big box. That would be interesting to see on a track. I really want to get them on the same track at the same time.
That would be fun. Yeah,
that would be cool.
See, this is why we need people to, when we put out merchandise and stuff, they need to go out and buy it so that we can fund this sort of stuff. So,
right.
And that's where I should have something to put up and say, now go buy this, but I don't have anything at the moment. So,
I'm telling you, dude, Untitled Car Show lanyard or keychain.
I'd like the keychain idea. I need to work that out. I don't. Let's talk merch here, since we're on the show and that's how this works.
Let's talk merch. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. So I like, because this will allow everyone listening to chime in too. So listeners, this is your invitation to chime in on the show. So I like the idea of the lanyard, the keychain, because everyone needs a lanyard or a keychain. Although I feel like at a certain point you're just going to have so many you'll just stop buying them. Like
no. You just keep hanging them on a hook. You know how many lanyards I have from events that I've been to with press passes? It's like a badge of honor how many lanyards I have.
Yeah, but how many people...
And you can frame them nicely with like photos that are relevant. Yeah, the lanyards are dope.
Yeah.
I'm under 25. I won't be swayed that lanyards aren't awesome. Well, I'm not gonna buy into that.
Yeah, but you're unusual, because how many people have a bunch of lanyards from a bunch of different press events going on?
People my age around here have a bunch of lanyards. Not necessarily from press events, but from either sporting events that they've been to or whatever. People have lanyards that are my age.
All right, so...
What I'm waiting for... Have you ever seen You've seen the people who poke their lanyard out the side of their pocket?
No.
No? Oh, you don't have that? Do you not hang out around young people?
No, I'm not allowed to anymore. Yeah, no, I got to keep a certain distance away.
You got to be 50 feet away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Schools and okay. Well, all the youngins, if you will, when you have the lanyard on your keys, you put the keys in your pocket, but you let the lanyard part run out down your leg so everybody can see your awesome lanyard.
Oh, see.
So you'll have kids walking around like I have a Sparko lanyard, and sometimes I have an LA Auto Show lanyard. My fiance has a King Taco lanyard. Like everybody can see your lanyard. Usually, car guys will have the lanyard of the car they have, so you'll know what they drive. And it's, oh, you're an enthusiast as well. I see you have a lanyard that says E30 on it. What type of E30 do you own? And they tell you they have a 323 like E36 that doesn't run. Oh, okay, cool. Sweet, man.
I think I've gone cross-eyed about in chassis codes. So, I refuse to learn BMW chassis codes. I refuse.
The BMW ones are the easy ones. You just need to know the main three, and then the rest of them you just don't care.
I don't care about any of them. I refuse. Give me a date and give me a decade and a year, and I'll figure it out.
He has a mid to late 80s chassis code on his lanyard. I ask him which engine he has, and he actually says, "Oh, I actually have the mid 90s one. It doesn't run."
Mm-hmm. See, now I understand. Now you're speaking my lingo. I mean, when we eventually get like a production crew or something, we're just going to we are going to just follow me through a BMW car meet or like some sort of like BMW historic thing, and just like watch me go cross-eyed at everyone talking about chassis codes. Oh man, I got my BMW. It's an E33, and it's got the proper Euro lightweight spec. Oh my god, I've gone cross-eyed. So lanyards are good. Now, are we? I'm kind of on the fence about those. What about socks? Can we do socks? Untitled Car Show socks?
I don't think socks are going to take off.
You don't think socks will take off?
No.
Well, we did the shirts, and the shirts did okay, but they didn't do as well as I would have liked.
Right.
So obviously we're not shirt people. What is hats? See, I'm not a hat person, so I don't know what a good hat would be. That's kind of why I stayed away from that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wear the fitted, like you have to have the right size baseball hat.
Yeah.
I don't keep the brims flat. I do bend the brim down a little bit so I don't look like a douche.
Mm-hmm.
I like those. Other people don't. And some people like snapbacks, and some people like, with the Velcro strap in the back. It looks tacky. So the hat, you're kind of hit or miss, like a beanie maybe.
Mm-hmm. A beret? Can we do a beret?
Cold car meet. You have a little Untitled Car Show beanie. Yeah. Black, very simple.
That's not a bad idea. Beanie, that's a good one. Because I got a Cobb beanie, and I do love that. That's a good for a little car meet thing. That's actually beanie, good one. Yeah. Do people still wear stuff around their wrist? I don't know. Is that a thing still?
No, that's old.
I didn't. Yeah. I don't think cell phone case makes any sense. That doesn't make any sense.
You'd have to do it only in 2 or 3 phones, and predictably everybody's gonna be like, "Well, I have a Droid. Are you covering the Samsung Galaxy S634 Note?
Yeah.
You have a case for that?" And it's like, no, shut up.
Yeah.
Are you just why do you all have iPhones? What do you have against there's 900 of them? I'm not gonna make a case for every single one.
Yeah.
You can't do cases.
No. Is there anything like? Because I assume most people listening are listening while they're driving in their vehicle. That's kind of like where I think our bread and butter is, or cheese and cracker, is in while they're driving in a vehicle. So I don't know if there's like, obviously air fresheners. Not going to do an Untitled Car Show air freshener. It smells like someone spilled tacos in the car. That's the Untitled Car Show air freshener.
Yeah.
So I don't think. No. I don't think there's anything really good. I mean, what is, like, there's nothing really vehicle specific we could do, I don't think. I mean, we have the stickers, but that's kind of like, I just hand those out for free because Johnny was nice enough to. I got to mail it to you. When we hang up, send me your address again and I'll send them out to you. And that goes for everyone. Just send me.
There's a great spot for it on the MR2, and there's a great spot for it on my car as well.
Excellent. I got to send those
my
out.
Thunder Hill track sticker.
Yeah, I got to send those out. You know what's been holding me back is I got a whole bunch of envelopes sealed with all the stuff inside, and I left them inside the Fiesta, and I'm currently reviewing the CX-9, and I just keep forgetting to like take them out of the Fiesta and put them in the mailbox. Because I have ADD, and I get easily distracted.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Let me think what else. So, I mean, Mr. Regular did like the weird hat. Beanies is a good idea. The lanyard thing, are we talking like the big thick lanyard, or are we talking about like the kind of cool short stubby one I've seen people, all the hip new kids with?
I think you should do both. Because I would imagine that the tooling cost isn't going to be anywhere near different, because it's going to be the same material. They just cut it short. But I think you could probably get away with doing both.
Like, obviously no wall art because we don't have any walls. We don't have anything artistically enough to do that, I don't think.
No, we need to hire some art person to do like a vector drawing of my MR. That's the shirt right there. Slash wall art slash what a sticker. Vector drawing of my MR2 and your Volvo.
Mm-hmm.
One above the other, kind of sideways, front 3/4 view.
Yeah.
And then the Untitled Car Show written below it.
There we go. It's not a bad idea. So
that's the idea right there.
See, this is why I keep Ryan around. He's got about once an episode he comes up with a good episode. We got 2 out of him this week though, so that's good.
It's all these marketing classes are really starting to pay off.
Ah, see, I see. So this is why I picked your brain on that. Obviously, we want to stay away from the birth control stuff. I mean, the program alone is birth control.
Right.
Untitled Car Show condoms. That does have a nice
sunglasses.
With the big old logo on them, so you can't see while you're driving.
You can do if you go to baseball games, they'll do handouts, and it's just default glasses, and then there's a little logo on the arm that connects it to your face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just have it say Untitled Car Show down the side, just real subtle, black one.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's going to be a thing. I don't know.
I'll send you a sample. You'll get it.
Oh, okay.
Because I know people who wear those cheap ass giveaway sunglasses because they work out to be $1.10 a piece for cost.
Yeah.
I mean they work out to be $7.95 in cost, and we have to factor in shipping. So yeah, it's $10.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Anyway, I know people who will get those as giveaways. I have a pair that's from the Giants game that I went to a while back, and I wore those for a long time. They're bright orange and ugly, but I need sunglasses. These are here. I don't mind breaking them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think the lanyard good. See, the lanyard's good because if people do wear them, it kind of helps advertise the show too. I'm not sure if that reads from far away though. You know.
Well, no, but it's a talking point among young enthusiasts, at least. Somebody will ask you about it if they look at your lanyard.
Oh, okay. That's not a bad idea.
I do that with younger people. If you're wearing a lanyard, I'm going to scope out your lanyard, and if your lanyard says New England Patriots, I'm just not going to talk to you.
That's a good point.
But you use that to kind of gauge the person. And it's oh, what's this podcast? Oh, you listen to podcasts. Wow, how trendy are you? You must have lots of free time. What do you do? How do you enrich your life? Well, actually, I listen to these 2 idiots talk to each other on Skype while one of them abuses everyone verbally. It's really good.
Yep.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay.
I get that. Maybe we'll look into the lanyards. Listeners, tell me what you think about the lanyard. We'll see what goes on with that. Trying to think what else. Is there any other key-related thing that we could do? Trying to think.
Not especially. Untitled Car Show, in case you fall in a river, window breakers.
Yeah, those are always super cheap, though. I don't think I would trust one of those with my life. The one was it's a seatbelt color, and you can hit it up against a window, and
yeah.
Because here we'll end the merch talk here because I think this is a good place to go. So any thing that is a 4-in-1, 8-in-1 device has always been crap, right, in your life. You've never had something that can do everything. Even the best made Leatherman is still a pale comparison to whatever individual tool you're trying to use. So when it comes to here's a combination glass breaker and seatbelt cutter, and it's got a flashlight on it, and it has an emergency signal on it, and all that 4-in-1 bullshit it has. It's I am not going to trust my life to a all-in-one tool. That just does not seem like a good way to go. It might be the exception to the rule, but that's not what I'm going to find out about that, you know?
I think the seatbelt cutter and window smasher, I think that's a good combination.
Yeah.
As soon as you add flashlight, I think you add an inherent uselessness to the device. Either the flashlight is garbage or the whole thing isn't very sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep it to like 2 things, otherwise it starts to get too broad and it's crap.
Mm-hmm. Like I have and it's crap. It's a window breaker and seatbelt cutter, but it's also like a flip out knife. And because it's got that flip out knife bit to it, it's, first of all, like, I've tried putting in like the little cubby on the driver's side for my wife just in case.
Fit.
Yeah. But the knife likes to just wander open after vibrating. It's like, yeah, no, that's not good.
That's beautiful. That's way safe.
Like, I need to get out of here. And then you go to grab the knife. It's open, so you cut yourself. And because of the way it's designed, the part that cuts the seatbelt is now open and no longer effective. So now you're just screwed again, and you're bleeding from the hand. So, yay. Right. So, I don't know. Like, I just think all cars should just have, like, an escape hatch. Like, just, like, hit a button and, like, just eject. Like, why
that's
not?
required on racing cars now. You have to have a roof hatch.
Oh.
On GT cars.
I did not know that.
Yeah. On GT cars, you got to have a roof hatch in case it's on its side and you can't get out.
Hmm.
They've done really cool things with the livery to where you can't see it, but if you're up close, you can just see the outline of where the panel is to open.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Looks almost like a half T-top. A U-top.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I've seen that because there was, what event was I at recently where I actually saw a GT car up close and I was like, oh, that's what that is. I didn't know what it was, but I'm like, interesting little hatch. So that's what that is. That's interesting. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
so how's this CX-9? How's that going?
It's going well, and see, this is why Ryan's the best. And if you're interested in hearing more, I will have a full podcast review for you this upcoming Friday. So look forward to that. The short bit of it right now is I kind of understand why people like large SUVs. So there's that. Like, it's Ryan, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Find that you want more power would be my question.
You know what? In the all-wheel drive, I don't find it lacking. I find it to be adequate. I'm pretty sure, now this is to say, because someone asked me this today, they're like, is that a inline 4 or V6? I'm like, I'm 99% sure it's an inline 4 with a turbo, but I'm not 100%.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's a 2.5 liter.
Yeah.
With a turbo? Yes.
Yeah. So, because it's the Sky Active, and Sky Active means turbo.
No, Sky Active means efficient. It means turbo.
Well, see, Mazda, you're confusing me. Professional car reviewer Ike. Sky Active means some bullshit, but I think it's 302 horsepower.
Somewhere there's a PR rep right now. Sky Active doesn't mean bullshit. Oh my God, we gave a $40,000 SUV. What the fuck are we doing?
You hit it right on the nose. That's exactly how much this car was. It was like $40,283. Like, that was
good, man.
Yeah, it's impressive. See, this is why Ryan's the best.
I mean, those all are though. Like Toyota Highlanders are 40, 45 grand.
Mm-hmm.
The Pilot gets up there. I think you can spend up to 50 grand on a Honda Pilot if you really try.
Mm-hmm. I want one of those. Side note: I want to try because I'm doing a whole series of these big SUVs. I just emailed Infinity, and they said they're rotating the fleet, so they'll get back to me, which I think is code for go fuck yourself, but I'm not 100%. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I want one of those big SUV, like the big, ugly SUV Infinity makes. I want to understand who owns and drives that. Like, what is it, the Q7, I think is what it is, or Q8
Q70,
or something?
QX70, something,
Yeah, SQ70, something like that. I want to drive that. I want to understand why.
Well, you've also got the Nissan. I think Nissan makes one called the Armada.
Yeah.
Same thing. You may have a better shot at that.
Yeah. Ironically, Nissan didn't email me back. Infinity did. I don't know why. Yeah. Or
interesting.
Yeah, Nissan's just taking its time, or I'm on a do not answer list over at Nissan USA. So, like, no, just stop. We're not going to deal with this guy. So, Ryan, I'll let you return to civilization because I know you're kind of out and about at the moment. So I appreciate you joining me.
It's great. I'm sitting in the seat of my very comfortable car, taking in the 85-degree night breeze.
That's code for shut up, Ike. Let's do this. So, because you are routinely on here, we'll close it out together. So, Ryan, where can people find you?
You can find me at RYANATOR122 on Twitter, at Ryanator122 on Twitter. You can add me on Facebook, Ryan West. I live in Redding, California. There you go. So find Ryan West in Redding, California. That's me. And also, you can find more of my more open missives are going to be on the IMSA fans, IMSA space FANS, IMSA fans Facebook page, which is full of people just like me in the sense that they don't really care what they say because it's a closed group, and they talk lots of crap. And actually, there's a bunch of professional race car drivers that contribute occasionally as well, like Ricky Taylor and Ryan Eversley are on there as well. So you can get some interaction in with some professional race car drivers, me, Bradley Brownell, who does the TFL show. He's on there. A lot of good people. So definitely a good thing.
And you also run our Instagram account occasionally.
I do. And by occasionally, I mean I haven't even broken into that yet.
And which is at Untitled Car Show.
At Untitled Car Show,
yeah. My thoughts and opinions are pretty much at Untitled Car Show on Twitter. We have a Facebook too, and I'm forgetting something. Yeah, go check out Opposite Lock and Right Foot Down. There's a lot more of my random thoughts on those places. So, everyone, have a good night, have a good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is there. Thanks so much for listening. Please be safe out there, right?
And have your pets spayed or neutered.
Yes. Just don't do it yourself. It's not a good way to save money. All right.
Not a good scene.
No. Cleanup is just not worth it. All right. Bye.